introduction to statistics. So what is statistic? Statistic it represents procedures of collecting, organizing, analyzing, interpreting, and presenting data into useful information. And it is also used to draw conclusions and making decisions, requires reasonable mathematical and logical reasoning. The next is data arrangement. The table below shows the following 50 sample data that lists the current price of bungalows for a given size in Kuala Lumpur, Kelantan. There have 50 sample, which is a number from 200 to 24 until 370. And the next is step of frequency distribution. So the step of frequency distribution have 5 steps, which is step 1, decide on the number of classes. Step 2, determine the class internal or risk. Step 3, set the individual class limit. Step 4, make a tally mark for each data entry in the appropriate class. And the last step is the number of tally per class is the frequency for that class. So there have 3 columns, which is class have 6 classes. And the next is relative frequency and cumulative relative frequency. So, relative frequency is the portion or percentage of the data that falls in a class. And to find the relative frequency of a class, we must divide the frequency by the sample size. So, this is a formula for relative frequency. So, a relative frequency have 3 columns, which is class, frequency, and relative frequency. For cumulative relative frequency, of this is the sum of the frequency for that class and all previous classes. Cumulative frequency of the last class is equal to the sample size. So this is a formula, which is cumulative frequency of the last class equals sample size. There's 4 columns and classes has 6 classes. For the graphical method, we use 2 methods, which is polygon and histogram. So the graph shows the highest frequency for the class in 272 until 287, and the lowest grade is 304 until 319.
3.0 Measure of Center Tendency. A measure of center tendency is a value that represents the center of a distribution. 3 most used to measure of tendency for a ungroup and group data are mean, median, and mode. So, what is mean? Mean is a sum of a data entries divided by the number of entries. We have 2 means, where is capital N for population and small letter n is for sample mean. Okay, for the median, the value that lies in the middle of the data when the data set is ordered. When odd number data entries, the median is the middle of data entries. But when even number data entries, the median is the mean of the 2 middle data entries. Okay, for the mode, the data entries that occur with the greatest frequency. So for the mode, we have no mode and bimodal. If no entry is repeat, the data set has no mode. But if 2 entries occur with the same greatest frequency, each entry is a mode and the data set will be called as a bimodal. So let me see for mean for this data. Mean for a sample is approximated by this formula. If you can see at the slide, fx divided by n, where x is a midpoint of a class, f is a frequency of class, and n is summation number of entries in sample. So what is the mean for this data frequency? Multiply by midpoint. Make 1 column to get the answer for fx. Then the additional result for frequency is 50. And the additional result for fx is 13,255. So for a fx solution, divide which n will get the amount is 265.1 or 265,100. We can conclude the mean of the current price of bungalows for a given size in Kuala Lumpur, Kelantan was approximate 265.1 or RM 265,100. Second, we go for the median of this data. Median of this data can be calculated using the following formula that we provide on this slide, where LM is a lower class, boundary of median class, FM is a frequency of the median class, and summation FM minus 1 is a cumulative frequency before median class, and C, as we know, is a class size or class width. So this is data like you can see in the slide, So for the median, the solution is that one, we must determine the location of the median class. Use formula and divide to observation. So 50 divide 2 observation, the answer is 25 observation. Okay. Therefore, the median class is 256.0 until 271.0. Step 2, we go to determine the lower class boundary LM, which is 256.0 minus 0.5. The answer is 255.5. Next is step 3. We determine class size, which is 271.0 minus 255.0, and this answer is 16. For the step 4, we determine FM minus 1 and FM. FM minus 1 is 70 and FM is 12. Last step is step 5, which is calculate the median using the formula in this slide so we can get the answer correctly. From this answer, we can conclude the median of the current price of bungalow for a given size in Kuala Kurai, Kelantan was approximately 266.172. Next, we go how to calculate the mode from this data. Okay, the solution is that one, we must determine the location of the modal class based on the highest frequency. Therefore, the modal class is 272.0 until 287.0. Step 2, we also determine the lower class boundary. LM is 272.0 minus 0.5. The answer is 271.5. Okay, for the step 3, we also determine class size, which is 287.0 minus 271.0. The answer is 16. Next, we go for step 4, which is determine tangents 1 and tangents 2. For the tangents 1, 15 minus 12, the answer is 3. And for the tangents 2, 15 minus 14, the answer is 11. So we go for the last step, which is step 5. Calculate the mode. So we showed how to calculate for the mode. You can see from this slide. This answer we get from using formula Ln plus bracket tangents 1 divide tangents 1 plus tangents 2 bracket multiply which C is 274.924. We can conclude the mode of the current price of bungalow for a given size in Kuala Kurai, Kelantan was approximately 274.924.
Measure of variations. A measure of variation is some parameters attempt to describe the amount of variation between random variables. Three parameters that are used to quantify the amount of variation in a set of random variables include range, variance, and standard deviations. Firstly, range. The range of a data is the difference between the maximum and minimum data entries in the set. Formula: range equals maximum minus minimum data entry in class. The solution is 319.0 minus 224.0 is 95. So with 1000, you get the current price of bungalow for a given size. Therefore, the current price of bungalows for a given size in Kuala Kurai, Kelantan was Rm 95,000. Variance. Variance is measuring the scattering of data from the minimum value. Small values mean the data is scattered around the minimum value. The high value indicates that the data is scattered far from the minimum value. So there are 6 columns in the table of variance: class Fx, x2, Fx, and Fx2. So we use the formula to get the variance. Therefore, the sample variance is Rm 4,051,920 ringgit. Third is standard deviations. Standard deviation is the most appropriate measurement for measuring data scattering. The value of them reflects the position of the data scattered about the mean. The solution is we use answer from we get the variance and calculate using this formula to find the standard deviations. Therefore, the sample of standard deviation is 672,250 ringgit. Measure of positions. To determine the measure of position, the data must be sorted from lowest to highest. In this topic, we focus on quartile in group data. A quartile is one of 3 points divided in dataset into 4 equal groups. In table of quartile, we get the 3 columns, include class, frequency, and cumulative frequency. The solution, step 1, we find the location Q1 and Q3. To get the class interval, so the Q1 in the class interval and divide 4, so we get the 12.5. Where we get the 12.5?
in the cumulative frequency. So we get the class interval 240.0 to 255.0. Q3 we get the class interval is 272.0 to 287.0. Step 2, find the value of Q1 and Q3 using formula. So we get RM 248,300 ringgit in Q1, while Q3 was 230,620 ringgit. After we get the Q1 and Q3, we must find the interquartile range. The difference between the upper and lower quantile is called the interquartile range. So the solution is formula is Q3 minus Q1. So we get the Q3 is 280.62 minus 248.3. So we get the 32.32. So therefore the value of interquartile range is 32,220 ringgit. Next, the shape of data disruptions, described by its number of bits and by its positions of symmetry, its tendency to skew or its uniformity. So we have three, mean, median, and mode. The mean we get is 265.1, median 260.172, mode 274.924. So this is mean. Mean is the smallest from median. Median is the smallest from the mode. Therefore, it is skewed to the left.
Okay, now I want to share about question 1 in part B, which is one set of data that have one independent variable and one dependent variable. First of all, the table shows about the data of independent variable and dependent variable that we use in our research. Independent variable is sound like variable and standalone, and it's changed by the variable you try and measure. Dependent variable also usually when you are looking for relationship between two things and you also trying to find out when make the dependent variable change the way it does. For example, at the table show how we looking for the relationship between school achievement and attendance. For question number 2, our data set is consists more than 100. Therefore, we have select the random number which is n equal 35.
I will explain how to calculate personnel for the moment correlation and coefficient. Before that, let us know what is percent for the correlation. This technique name of the calculus study station is used to measure the strength or relationship between two variables that are quantitative in the nature. As you can see on the slide proper for you the formula how to calculate it. The formula is summation xy minus summation x and y. Then you have to divide beta and the delta. Before that, you have to square root summation of x square 2 minus summation x with square 2 and divide it by total of delta as well as for summation y. Then you can get the final answer. For our data, the final answer between x and y, which is x is day present and y is GPA, the answer is 478. In addition, you need to determine the correlation strength for our data is very strong positive correlation at 0.870 between x and y.
Today I want to talk about the question 4 part B about develop the estimate regression equation, then interpret the regression equation. This is data collection by the estimate regression equation. Sum of squares SS time equal 14172.6857. Sum of product SP equal 478.3854. B equal SP divided by SS time equal 478.39 divided by 14172.69 equal 0.03375. B0 equal mean y minus b mean times equal 3.16 minus 0.03 times 156.26 equal minus 2.11602. Y equal 0.03375 times minus 2.11602. The answer of this question is since the value of the slope is 0.3375, it can be concluded that each day present would contribute to an increase of 0.3375 days to the GPA. Also, the basic GPA is 2.11602.